They say life can change in an instant. That one moment, one decision, one piece of paper can rip your entire world apart. I never really believed that. I was a simple guy, a man who loved his family, his job, and the quiet predictability of my life. I thought I had it all. Sophia and I had been married for 10 years. A decade of love, laughter, and all the ups and downs that come with marriage. Our son, Noah, was 7. My pride and joy. My little shadow. There was nothing in the world I wouldn't do for him. I was the guy who stayed up late assembling Christmas presents, who took him to every baseball game, who sat through endless episodes of cartoons just to hear him laugh. I was the dad who never missed a bedtime story, who carried him on my shoulders when he got tired, who felt a love so deep for this boy that I could barely put it into words. And then, in one moment, all of it was called into question. It started with something small. My father had a history of a rare genetic heart condition, something I had never worried too much about, until my cousin was diagnosed out of the blue. The doctors told me it could skip generations, hide undetected. And that got me thinking. Noah had never shown any signs of illness, but the thought gnawed at me. What if it was dormant? What if he carried the gene? So, I did what any concerned father would do. I made an appointment with our family doctor, Dr. Martin Gray, and scheduled a genetic test for Noah. Just to be safe. Just for peace of mind. When I told Sophia about it, she hesitated. Just for a second. Is that really necessary? She asked, forcing a small smile. I mean, he's perfectly healthy, Henry. Maybe we shouldn't put him through that if we don't have to. It's just a simple test, I said, brushing it off. No needles, no pain. I just want to be sure. She nodded, but something about the way her fingers tightened around the edge of the kitchen counter stuck with me. She looked uneasy. I should have paid attention to that. I should have seen it for what it was. But I didn't. Because I trusted my wife. The test itself was easy, just a simple cheek swab for Noah, nothing that could hurt him. He even laughed when the nurse did it, saying it tickled. I ruffled his hair, smiling down at him, feeling like a good father for taking precautions. Sophia, on the other hand, was silent the whole time. I caught her rubbing her hands together, her knee bouncing slightly as she sat in the chair across from me in Dr. Gray's office. When I glanced at her, she flashed me a tight-lipped smile. She was nervous. I thought it was because she hated hospitals. She always had. When she was pregnant, she dreaded every doctor's visit, every test. I used to joke that she feared needles more than labor itself. So I chalked it up to that. But when we walked out of the clinic, she grabbed my arm and pulled me aside. Henry, she said, her voice low. Do we really need to do this? I frowned. What do you mean? I don't like the idea of running unnecessary tests on Noah. I gave her a look. It's not unnecessary, Sophia. If there's even a chance. But what if the results stress you out for no reason? What if it comes back saying he has some risk and you just spend years worrying over nothing? I sighed, shaking my head. If something were wrong, wouldn't you want to know? She hesitated. Just for a second. Then she nodded. Of course. But I could tell she didn't mean it. I kissed her forehead, dismissing the moment as nothing more than her usual anxiety. It'll be fine, I assured her. Just a formality. I didn't think about it again after that. Not until a week later, when I opened that envelope and my whole world collapsed. The results arrived on a Thursday afternoon. I remember because it was my day off, and I had just finished mowing the lawn when the mail truck pulled up. The sun was beating down, my shirt was sticking to my back, and I was feeling pretty damn good about my neatly trimmed yard. I grabbed the stack of mail from the box, flipping through the usual bills and junk before my eyes landed on a plain white envelope with the clinic's logo stamped in the corner. For a second I hesitated. I don't know why. Maybe some part of me, the part that could sense when something wasn't right, knew that once I opened that envelope, there was no going back. But I ignored it. I walked inside, grabbed a beer from the fridge, and sat at the kitchen table, tearing the flap open with my thumb. Inside was a single sheet of paper. At first, my eyes skimmed the medical jargon, looking for the part that mattered. The results. And then I saw it. Probability of paternity, 0%. I blinked. My brain refused to process the words. Like they were written in some foreign language I couldn't understand. 0%? I read it again. And again. The beer bottle slipped from my fingers, crashing onto the table and spilling everywhere, but I didn't move. This had to be a mistake. There was no way. Noah was my son. My boy. The child I had held in my arms the day he was born, the one who had my smile, my laugh, my love. I pulled out my phone, my hands shaking so badly I could barely type. I dialed the clinic's number, gripping the edge of the table so hard my knuckles turned white. When the receptionist answered, I forced my voice to stay calm. Hi, I just got my son's genetic test results, and I think there's been some kind of mistake. Let me check for you, sir. The seconds dragged as I heard the keyboard clacking on the other end. My heart was hammering against my ribs, my breath shallow. Yes, I see the test here, she said finally. What seems to be the issue? I swallowed. It says there's a 0% chance that I'm his father. A brief pause. That is correct, sir. The results are accurate. The room spun. I barely heard her as she started rambling about the reliability of their testing process, about how there was no chance of an error. I hung up without another word. And then I just sat there, staring at the paper, my mind screaming at me that this couldn't be real. But it was. I don't know how long I sat there. Minutes. Maybe hours. Just staring at that goddamn piece of paper, as if looking at it long enough would somehow make it change. It didn't. The truth was there, black and white, cold and merciless. Noah wasn't my son. I felt sick. My stomach twisted into knots, my breath coming in short, uneven gasps. This wasn't just some mistake. This wasn't some technical error. This was my life unraveling right in front of me. And there was only one person who could explain it. Sophia. I heard her car pull into the driveway just as I stood up. My legs felt weak, my body running on pure adrenaline. The front door opened, and there she was, holding a few grocery bags, completely oblivious to the storm waiting for her inside. She smiled when she saw me. Hey, babe. Who is he? The words came out raw, my voice shaking with barely restrained fury. Her smile faltered. What? I slammed the test results onto the counter between us. Who is he? Sophia's face went pale. Her hands tightened around the grocery bags, her knuckles turning white. I don't know what you mean, she stammered. I let out a bitter laugh, my vision blurring at the edges. Don't do that. Don't lie to me. Not now. Just tell me the truth, Sophia. Who is Noah's real father? She shook her head rapidly, tears welling in her eyes. No, Henry, it's not. This has to be a mistake. You are his father. I grabbed the test results and shoved them at her. This says otherwise. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I don't understand. Stop lying! I roared, slamming my fist onto the counter. She jumped, letting the grocery bags slip from her hands. Apples rolled across the floor. A carton of eggs cracked open, spilling onto the tile. But neither of us moved. Her lips trembled. I swear I didn't. I never wanted. Didn't want me to find out? I snapped. How long have you known? She just stood there, sobbing, shaking her head like she could somehow will this all away. And that's when I knew. She had known all along. The silence between us stretched, thick and suffocating. I could hear my own heartbeat pounding in my ears, feel the rage boiling just beneath my skin. But underneath that anger, there was something worse. Betrayal. Sophia collapsed onto one of the kitchen chairs, burying her face in her hands. Her whole body was shaking. Henry, please, she whispered. Just listen to me. Listen to you? I let out a hollow laugh. Why the hell should I? You've been lying to me for 7 years. She looked up at me, her eyes red and desperate. I never meant for this to happen. I clenched my fists so hard my nails dug into my palms. Who is he? She hesitated, and for a split second, I thought she wasn't going to answer. But then, in the softest voice, she said, David. The name hit me like a fist to the gut. David Carter. I knew him. Not well, but enough. He was an old acquaintance, someone I used to see at neighborhood gatherings, the kind of guy who was always around but never close enough to be considered a friend. He was married. Had kids of his own. And now I was supposed to believe he was the real father of my son? My legs felt unsteady, so I braced myself against the counter. How? I croaked. Tears streamed down her face. It was one time, Henry. Just once. It was before we were even married. I thought it was over, I thought. Before we were married? I repeated, my voice cold. You're telling me you knew there was a chance Noah wasn't mine from the beginning? She squeezed her eyes shut. I didn't know for sure. I told myself it was impossible. That it had to be you. But it wasn't, I said bitterly. She sobbed harder. I was scared, Henry. When Noah was born, we took that first test, remember? But... My breath caught. The first test. I stared at her, something twisting deep in my gut. What are you talking about? She covered her mouth with her hands, shaking her head, as if she had just said something she wasn't supposed to. Tell me, Sophia, I demanded. And then, like a dam breaking, she whispered, Dr. Gray changed the results. The air in the room disappeared. I took a step back. What? She was full-on sobbing now. The test, it said you weren't the father. But I couldn't let you find out. I begged him to help me. He agreed to falsify the results. The walls felt like they were closing in. Dr. Gray. A man I had trusted. A man who had looked me in the eyes and told me I was Noah's father. It was all a lie. My whole goddamn life was a lie. I don't remember leaving the house. One second, I was standing in the kitchen, my mind spinning with Sophia's confession. The next, I was gripping the steering wheel, my knuckles white, my foot pressing harder on the gas than it should have. I barely registered the road, barely noticed the other cars. My mind was stuck on one thing. Dr. Martin Gray. The man who had looked me in the eye 7 years ago and told me Noah was mine. The man who had let me walk out of his office believing I was a father when he damn well knew I wasn't. I pulled into the clinic's parking lot, my hands trembling as I threw the car into park. My pulse was hammering in my ears, my breath shallow. I stormed inside. The receptionist barely had time to greet me before I pushed past her, ignoring her protests as I headed straight for Gray's office. I shoved open the door without knocking. Dr. Gray was sitting behind his desk, flipping through a patient file. He looked up, startled. Henry? What? You lied to me? His face changed in an instant. His expression didn't show confusion. It showed something else. Something like guilt. Henry, I think you should. I slammed the door behind me. Don't tell me to calm down. Don't pretend you don't know why I'm here. He sighed, rubbing a hand over his face. I was afraid this would happen. I felt my stomach twist. So, it's true. You falsified the results. He hesitated. Then, slowly, he nodded. I wanted to hit him. I wanted to grab him by his collar and demand to know how the hell he could do this to me. Why? I demanded. Why would you do that? Why would you help her lie to me? He exhaled sharply. Because she begged me to. She told me she made a mistake, that she loved you, that she wanted to protect your family. She said if you found out the truth, it would destroy everything. I let out a bitter laugh. And you just went along with it? He shook his head. I shouldn't have. I know that now. But at the time, she was desperate, Henry. And I thought maybe it was for the best. I told myself it wasn't my place to ruin a family. I clenched my jaw. It wasn't your place to play God either. He looked down. You're right. For a moment, the only sound in the office was my own ragged breathing. Then I asked the question that had been burning in the back of my mind. Does David Carter know? Dr. Gray looked up at me, his face unreadable. And then, in a quiet voice, he said, No. He has no idea. David Carter didn't know. The words echoed in my mind long after I left Dr. Gray's office. I sat in my car, gripping the wheel so tightly my fingers ached. I had come here looking for answers, but all I'd found were more lies. Sophia had kept the truth from me for 7 years. But she hadn't just deceived me, she had deceived David too. I thought about him. About all the times I had seen him at neighborhood barbecues, chatting with other dads while our kids ran around playing. About the polite nods we exchanged, the casual conversations about work, sports, life. The man had no idea that one of those kids was his. And I had no idea what the hell I was supposed to do with that. I could have driven home. Confronted Sophia again. Demanded more answers. But instead I found myself taking a different turn. I was going to see David. His house was only a few blocks away from mine. Suburban, neat, just like the rest of our neighborhood. I pulled up to the curb, my heart hammering in my chest. This wasn't something I had planned. I didn't even know what I was going to say. But I couldn't walk away from this. I rang the doorbell. A few seconds later, the door swung open. David stood there, dressed in a plain t-shirt and jeans, his expression shifting from mild curiosity to confusion when he saw me. Henry? Hey, man. What's up? I swallowed hard. For a moment, I considered turning around, pretending I had never come. But I couldn't. Can we talk? I said. His brows furrowed. Yeah, sure. Everything okay? No. Nothing was okay. But I just nodded. It's important. He stepped aside, letting me in. The house smelled like coffee and wood polish, and in the background, I could hear the sound of a TV playing some sports channel. We sat in his living room, and he leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. What's going on? I exhaled sharply, running a hand through my hair. I don't know how to say this, so I'm just going to come right out with it. He straightened slightly. I forced myself to look him in the eye. 7 years ago, did you and Sophia ever? I couldn't even say it. My throat closed up. David's face changed. He sat back, frowning. Sophia? What do you mean? Did you ever sleep with her? I forced out. His expression hardened. Why the hell are you asking me that? I pulled the crumpled test results from my pocket, my hands shaking as I unfolded them. I placed them on the coffee table between us. David looked at them. Then back at me. What is this? I swallowed the lump in my throat. A paternity test. I just found out I'm not Noah's father. His whole body went still. I watched as the realization dawned on him, his eyes widening in shock, in disbelief. And then, in a voice barely above a whisper, he asked the one question I had been asking myself since the moment I opened that envelope. What the hell are we supposed to do now? David stared at the paper like it might change if he just looked hard enough. His fingers hovered over it, but he didn't touch it. He just sat there, his breathing slow and uneven, like he was trying to hold himself together. Finally, he looked up at me. His voice was quiet. You're sure about this? I nodded. Positive. I had Noah tested because of a genetic condition in my family. The results came back, and that's how I found out. David ran a hand down his face. Jesus Christ. I studied him. He wasn't denying it. He wasn't yelling, or trying to call me crazy. And that told me everything I needed to know. He had suspected. Maybe not in a concrete way. Maybe he had never let himself really consider it. But deep down, something had been there, buried beneath years of routine and normalcy. You and Sophia, I said slowly. When did it happen? He let out a bitter breath. 8 years ago. Right before you two got married. I clenched my jaw. So she told me. He shook his head. It was a mistake, Henry. I swear to you, it wasn't some affair. It was one time. We were both drunk, and we both knew it was wrong the second it happened. I stared at him, my emotions too tangled to process. You never questioned it? I asked. His face darkened. I mean, yeah, maybe. When she got pregnant so soon after. He let out a hollow laugh. I remember doing the math once. But I told myself it wasn't possible. I didn't push it. Why would I? You two were happy, and she never said a damn word about it. I scoffed. Yeah. She made sure of that. He leaned back against the couch, exhaling hard. So what now? I looked down at my hands. I didn't have an answer. Because no matter what I did, nothing could fix this. If I walked away, I'd be abandoning Noah, the boy I had loved and raised as my own. The boy who called me Dad, without hesitation. But if I stayed, I didn't even know what that would mean. Could I keep pretending? Could I look at him every day and not see the lie that had been forced on me? David's voice cut through my thoughts. Does Noah know? I shook my head. Not yet. His jaw tensed. Are you going to tell him? I didn't answer right away. Finally, I met his gaze. Do you want to? David's lips parted slightly, like he hadn't expected me to ask that. His hands curled into fists on his knees. For the first time since I walked into his house, I saw something in his eyes that hadn't been there before. Fear. Not of me. Not of the truth. But of what it meant. Because if he admitted the truth, if he acknowledged that Noah was his, he would have to make a choice too. And just like me, he had no idea what the right answer was. David rubbed his hands over his face, then rested his elbows on his knees, staring at the floor like it held the answer to the impossible question hanging between us. Jesus, Henry, he muttered. I don't know what to say. I leaned back in my chair, exhausted in every way a man could be. Neither do I. For a long time, neither of us spoke. The TV murmured in the background, some commentator going on about a football game neither of us cared about. Outside, the world kept moving, oblivious to the fact that inside this house, two men were sitting across from each other, realizing their lives had just been permanently rewritten. Finally, David sighed. If we tell Noah, it'll change everything. I nodded. Yeah. And if we don't? I stared at him. Then I live with a lie for the rest of my life. And so do you. His Adam's apple bobbed as he swallowed. Do you think it's better that way? To just keep it quiet? I thought about Noah. About his messy hair in the mornings, the way he scrunched up his nose when he was thinking hard about something. The way he looked at me like I was his hero. I thought about what it would do to him if one day he found out the truth in some other way. Found out that the man he'd called Dad wasn't his father. I clenched my fists. I don't know. But I can't be the guy who lies to his kid. David exhaled sharply. So we tell him. Yeah. He nodded, but I could see the tension in his jaw, the way his fingers twitched like he was trying to hold back something heavier than words. And then what? I looked at him. Then you decide what kind of father you want to be. His head snapped up, his eyes locking onto mine. Because that was the part he hadn't let himself think about yet. It was one thing to know the truth. It was another thing entirely to act on it. If David stepped in as Noah's real father, he would be changing the course of not just his life, but Noah's, Sophia's, mine. And if he walked away? Could he live with that? His hands tightened into fists. I never wanted to take anything from you, Henry. I let out a bitter chuckle. Well, it's too late for that, isn't it? His face twisted with guilt, but I didn't let him speak. I pushed up from my chair, my limbs heavy. I need to go. David stood too. What are you going to do? I swallowed hard. Go home. Figure out how the hell I'm supposed to break my son's heart. I turned toward the door, but before I left, I looked back at him one last time. And you need to figure out what you want, David. Because once I tell him, there's no going back. I didn't wait for his answer. I just walked out, not knowing if I had just given Noah a chance at the truth, or set fire to everything he'd ever known. The drive home felt like a dream, the kind where you're running, but the ground keeps shifting beneath you, and no matter how hard you try, you can't get where you need to go. My mind was a storm, but at the center of it was one clear, undeniable thought. Noah was still my son. The test didn't change the years I'd spent raising him. It didn't erase the scraped knees I had patched up, the bedtime stories I had read, the nights I had carried him to bed when he fell asleep on the couch. But did I tell him? Did I let this truth, this ugly, bitter truth, sink its claws into him the way it had into me? By the time I pulled into the driveway, my hands were shaking. I stepped inside, and the house was quiet. Too quiet. Sophia was in the living room, sitting on the couch with her arms wrapped around herself. Her eyes were swollen from crying. She looked up when she heard me, but she didn't say anything. I shut the door behind me, my voice low. "Where's Noah?" "In his room." I nodded. My whole body felt numb. "Did you see him?" she asked hesitantly. "David?" I scoffed. "Yeah. I saw him." She looked down. "What did he say?" I ran a hand through my hair, letting out a dry, humorless laugh. "He didn't know, Sophia. You never told him." Tears filled her eyes again, and she covered her mouth with her hand. "I didn't want to lose you, Henry. I didn't." "Stop." My voice came out sharp, like a blade. "You already lost me." She flinched, her face crumbling, but I didn't care. I had one priority now. I walked past her, heading down the hallway to Noah's room. My son's room. I hesitated at the door, my heart hammering in my chest. Then I knocked softly. "Yeah?" came his little voice. I pushed the door open. Noah was sitting cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by Legos, his face lighting up when he saw me. "Dad! Look, I made a spaceship." I tried to smile, but it felt weak. I sat down next to him, picking up one of the Lego pieces, turning it over in my hands. My throat was tight, my chest aching. "Dad?" Noah frowned. "Are you okay?" I looked at him, really looked at him. The way his nose crinkled when he was confused, the way his eyes searched mine for reassurance. He was innocent in all of this. I had no idea how to do this. No script. No manual for breaking your child's world apart. I took a deep breath. "Noah, buddy, I need to tell you something really important." His little brow furrowed, his spaceship momentarily forgotten. I swallowed hard. And then, with my heart in my throat, I told my son the truth. Noah's small hands clutched the Lego spaceship, his eyes wide with the kind of confusion only a child can have when the world suddenly stops making sense. I had rehearsed a dozen different ways to say it, but in the end, all I could do was tell him the truth as simply as I could. "Noah," I said, my voice soft but firm. "You know how much I love you, right?" He nodded instantly. "Yeah. And you'll always be my son, no matter what." Another nod, but this time, his little fingers started fidgeting with the Legos. He could sense something was wrong. I took a shaky breath. "Today, I found out something that's really hard to say. The test we took, it showed that I'm not your biological dad." He blinked at me, his face scrunching up. "What does that mean?" "It means..." My throat tightened. "It means there was a mistake a long time ago, and the man who helped bring you into this world isn't me." Silence. Noah just sat there, staring, his mind working to piece together something too big, too cruel for him to understand. Finally, he whispered, "But you're my dad." I felt my chest cave in. I reached for his hand, gripping it tightly. "Yes. I am. No test, no piece of paper, nothing can ever change that. You are my son, and I love you more than anything." He swallowed, his small fingers tightening around mine. "But if you're not my real dad, then who is?" I hesitated. How the hell was I supposed to answer that? I exchanged one kind of pain for another. Either I let him live in confusion, or I told him the truth and changed his life forever. In the end, I couldn't lie. Not anymore. His name is David Carter, I said quietly. Noah frowned. I know him. Yeah, buddy. You do. More silence. His little mind was working so hard to understand something no 7-year-old should ever have to. Then, in the softest voice, he asked, Does he love me? The question sliced through me. I had no idea how David felt. I had no idea if he would even step up, if he would try to be part of Noah's life. But I wasn't going to let my son feel unwanted. I cupped his face, making sure he looked at me. You are loved, Noah. By me, by your mom, and I know that if David knew the truth, he would love you too. His lower lip trembled. But I don't want him. I want you. A choked sound escaped my throat. I pulled him into my arms, holding him so tight I could feel his little heart pounding against mine. I'm not going anywhere, I whispered into his hair. But even as I said it, I knew this wasn't the end of the storm. It was just the beginning. Noah clung to me, his small arms wrapped so tightly around my neck that I could feel his heart racing against my chest. He was scared. Confused. And who could blame him? His world had just cracked open, and he didn't have the words to understand why. I stroked his back, my throat tight. It's okay, buddy. I'm right here. We sat like that for what felt like forever. Eventually, he pulled back, wiping at his nose with the sleeve of his shirt. His eyes were red, his cheeks blotchy. Are you mad at me? He asked in a small voice. I felt like someone had punched me in the gut. Mad? No, Noah. Never. I held his face between my hands, making sure he saw the truth in my eyes. None of this is your fault. You didn't do anything wrong. He sniffled, nodding slowly. I kissed his forehead and rested mine against his. No matter what happens, you're my son. That'll never change. I promise. He nodded again, but I could tell he was exhausted, his little body worn out from emotions too big for him to carry. Come on, I said gently, standing up. Why don't we get ready for bed? You can sleep in my room tonight if you want. He hesitated, then whispered, Okay. I tucked him in, sitting with him until his breathing evened out. But even after he fell asleep, I just sat there, staring at the ceiling. What the hell was I supposed to do now? When I finally left Noah's room, Sophia was waiting for me in the hallway, her arms wrapped around herself. Her eyes were puffy, her face pale. You told him, she said quietly. I nodded. Yeah. A tear slipped down her cheek. How did he take it? I let out a slow, tired breath. He's 7, Sophia. How do you think? She covered her mouth with her hand, stifling a sob. I'm so sorry, Henry. I never wanted this. I never wanted to hurt him or you. I shook my head. It's too late for that. She flinched, more tears spilling down her cheeks. What now? I ran a hand down my face, the weight of everything pressing on me. David needs to know. Noah asked if his real father loved him. What the hell am I supposed to say to that? Sophia's breath hitched. Are you going to let David be in his life? I met her eyes, my jaw tight. That's not my choice to make. That's between him and Noah. Her hands trembled. And us? I let the silence stretch between us. Sophia. My wife. The woman I had built a life with, the woman I had trusted for 10 years. I looked at her, really looked at her, and realized something. I didn't love her anymore. Not the way I used to. Not after this. You made this choice for us a long time ago, I said finally. You just didn't tell me. She started sobbing again, but I was too drained to care. I turned away, heading for the door. I need to talk to David. And with that I walked out, knowing that whatever came next, nothing in my life would ever be the same again. David was waiting for me. When I pulled up to his house, the front porch light was already on, and he was standing there, hands in his pockets, staring out into the dark like a man waiting for bad news. I killed the engine and sat there for a moment, gripping the wheel, steadying myself. Then I stepped out. Neither of us spoke as I walked up the steps. I stopped in front of him, and for a moment, we just stood there, two men caught in the middle of something neither of us had asked for. Finally, David broke the silence. "How is he?" I exhaled slowly. "Not good." His jaw clenched. "You told him?" I nodded. "Yeah. He knows." David let out a sharp breath, rubbing a hand over his face. "Jesus." I leaned against the railing, folding my arms. "He asked if you love him?" David froze. His hands dropped to his sides, and for the first time, I saw something raw in his eyes. Fear. Not for himself. Not for what this meant for him. For Noah. He swallowed hard. "I don't even know him, Henry." I felt something hot flare in my chest. "That's not his fault." David flinched. "I know." I shook my head. "Look, man. I don't care about what happened between you and Sophia anymore. I don't give a damn about the past. The only thing that matters to me now is Noah. And right now, that kid is sitting in his bed, scared as hell, trying to understand why the world doesn't make sense anymore." David stared at the ground. "You have a choice to make," I continued, my voice rough. "You can step up and be a part of his life, or you can walk away. But whatever you decide, you need to be sure. Because once you're in, you don't get to leave. He's already lost enough." David let out a shaky breath. He looked at me then, his eyes dark with conflict. "What do you want me to do?" I hesitated. What did I want? I wanted my old life back. I wanted to wake up tomorrow and find out this was all some nightmare. I wanted to be Noah's father without question, without conditions. But that wasn't reality. Reality was that my son had another father. And whether I liked it or not, that man had a right to choose if he wanted to know him. So I said the only thing I could. "This isn't about me," I told him. "It's about Noah." David swallowed, his throat bobbing. Then, finally, he nodded. "I want to meet him," he whispered. And just like that, the last piece of my old life crumbled away. I spent the next 2 days trying to prepare Noah for what was coming. I didn't rush it. I didn't force it. I just let him sit with the truth, let him ask his questions when he was ready. And he did. "Does he know about me?" "Not until now." "Why didn't Mom tell him?" I had no good answer for that one. "I don't know, buddy." "Are you mad that he's my real dad?" That one took me a second. "No," I said carefully. "I'm mad about how I found out." "But you're my son, Noah. No matter what." That seemed to ease something in him. But I could tell he was still struggling. How could he not be? He was just a kid, and we had just told him that half of what he thought was true, wasn't. But when I told him David wanted to meet him, he surprised me. "Okay," he said, his voice quiet but firm. "Yeah?" I asked. He nodded. "Yeah." So, the meeting was set. We agreed on neutral ground, a quiet park on the edge of town. No distractions. No pressure. Just a place for them to sit, to talk, to see each other for the first time as something more than strangers. When the day came, I could feel Noah's nerves just by looking at him. He barely spoke on the drive over, his hands fidgeting with the hem of his hoodie. "It's okay to be nervous," I told him. "I'm not nervous," he mumbled. I smiled a little. "You get that from me, you know." He looked up at me, something flickering in his eyes, relief, maybe, that I was still here, still his dad, no matter what. When we pulled into the parking lot, David was already there, sitting on a bench beneath a big oak tree. His hands were clasped together, his knee bouncing up and down. He looked like he might be just as nervous as Noah. I turned to my son. "Ready?" He took a deep breath. Then, slowly, he nodded. I climbed out of the car, and Noah followed. We walked together across the grass, step by step, toward the man who, for 7 years, had unknowingly been a ghost in his own son's life. David stood as we approached. He met my eyes first, searching, uncertain, but I gave him a small nod. Then his gaze shifted downward. To Noah. For a long moment, they just looked at each other. David swallowed hard. Hey, Noah. Noah hesitated, then gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. Hi. Silence. Not awkward, just heavy. I put a hand on Noah's shoulder, grounding him. Why don't we sit? We did. Me on one side, David on the other, with Noah in between. David exhaled, running a hand through his hair. I don't really know how to start this. Noah looked down at his hands, quiet. David hesitated, then tried again. I know this is weird. And I know you probably have a lot of questions. I just want you to know that I didn't know. If I had, things would have been different. Noah still didn't speak. David swallowed. I'm not here to take anything from you. I know you have a dad. I can see that. But I'd like to get to know you, if you want that too. Silence. Then, finally, Noah glanced up at him. His voice was barely a whisper. Do you like baseball? David blinked. Then he smiled, small and unsure. Yeah. I do. Noah looked down again, thinking. Then, so quietly I almost didn't hear it, he said. I play second base. David nodded, his smile growing just a little. That's a great position. And just like that, the conversation began. It was slow. Careful. Hesitant. But it was a start. And for the first time since this whole nightmare began, I felt something shift in my chest. Not anger. Not betrayal. Just relief. Because no matter how much pain had come before this moment, I knew one thing for sure. Noah wasn't losing a father. He was gaining another. That first meeting wasn't perfect. It wasn't some grand, emotional moment where everything fell into place. But it was real. Noah was quiet at first, unsure, testing the waters. David was nervous, careful with his words. And I just watched, making sure my son knew that no matter what happened, I wasn't going anywhere. By the end of the conversation, Noah wasn't exactly comfortable, but he wasn't shutting down either. Before we left, David hesitated, then crouched slightly to Noah's level. I know this is a lot, and I don't want to rush anything. But if you ever want to hang out, just to talk or throw a baseball around, I'd really like that. Noah glanced at me, and I gave him an encouraging nod. Finally, he mumbled, Okay. David smiled, small, but genuine. Okay. We left after that. The ride home was quiet, but not tense. Just thoughtful. When we pulled into the driveway, Noah turned to me, fiddling with the zipper on his hoodie. Are you still my dad? The question cut me straight to the core. I turned in my seat, making sure he saw every bit of truth in my face. Always. His little brow furrowed. Even though he's my real dad? I reached over, squeezing his hand. Noah, being a dad isn't just about blood. It's about showing up. Loving you. Taking care of you. I've done that since the day you were born, and I'm not stopping now. He studied me, searching for cracks in my words. He wouldn't find any. Then, slowly, he nodded. Okay. I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. Okay. The weeks that followed weren't easy. Sophia and I talked, really talked, about what came next for us. We both knew the answer. Our marriage was over. Too much had been broken. The lies, the deception, it was too much to come back from. Surprisingly, she didn't fight it. Maybe she had seen it coming. Maybe she had known, deep down, that some betrayals are too big to fix. We agreed on co-parenting. We both wanted Noah to have stability, no matter what. As for David, it started small. A few phone calls. A couple of meetings at the park. He didn't push, and I respected him for that. He let Noah set the pace. One evening, after a baseball practice, Noah turned to me and said, "Can David come to my next game?" The question was so simple. But it meant everything. I nodded. "Yeah, buddy. If that's what you want." He smiled. Yeah. I think I do. And just like that, the pieces of our broken life started shifting into something new. Not perfect. Not easy. But real. I had lost a wife. I had lost the illusion of what I thought my life was. But I hadn't lost my son. And in the end, that was all that mattered.